Hello. We have absolutely no slides, only code, or actually, no, we don't even have code. We show you at the end that there is also code, but we try to do everything visual. With respect to Twitter, please tweet at the end if we were successful. If not, don't. So let's start. What we're going to do is we're going to build a full stack application with CAP and Fiori elements. And to make it a bit more exciting and a bit more colorful, we put a lot of analytics in it. We do this in the Business Application Studio, right? So in the back, there will be CAP and there will be Fiori elements, but you will only see that at the very end, and then we'll give you some sugar why that is cool. So normally you start with an entry page. Don't be afraid, it says sub build. It's not about build, it's obviously CAP, UI5, Fiori elements, and the Business Application Studio. So you can create a new application, which I've done beforehand here. So you press create and then give it a name, and then this analytics application is created. To spare us some loading time, we immediately jump then into the result in the Business Application Studio, and it's more or less an almost empty page. You can see a lot of stuff that you can do here. You can create data models and services. That's what we're going to do here. Well, that's what I'm going to do. And then you can also create UI applications. That's what Marianna is going to do. And you can also, we can't show you that, unfortunately, in the 20 minutes today, also have external services like, for example, the business partner from S4 easily integrated. Unfortunately, there's not enough time to also show that feature. So let's get right into it. Let me start. The first thing that you usually do in CAP is, of course, create some entities to get a database table at the end. Let's create a new data model. What I'm going to create is a CAPEX entity. I think I can also zoom a bit so this becomes a bit bigger. So CAPEX is capital expenditure, is a process where you want to get money for your department and you have to go through an approval process. We've been using this for quite a while as a demo. You see this entity is created immediately with an ID, which is a UUID. We can actually change that if we want that, but it's fine for us. So let's add a couple of properties to the entity, like a title, which would be a string. That's fine. Let's add a start date, which would be a date. Let's add efficiency, which is a decimal. And let's say it should have precision 4, and it should have just 2 digits behind the comma. And actually, that's it for the first entity. So I'm saving this. And to make this a bit more exciting, I'm going to add another entity, a second entity, which I call type. And again, I have an ID, which is a UID. In this case, I don't like that. I make this a string. We'll see later why that is, and we'll take it over. So we have now 2 entities. And what we can do is now we can create easily an association. First, it says relationship, but then the system asks me what that should be, like it's an association or composition. We say it's an association. It suggests to us, and also a new name type that actually fits perfectly for us. And we do that. We save that, and we are actually finished with the data model. So that's like for those who know CAP, our schema CDS usually. We go back to the main page, which is so-called storyboard, where we now see our data models, and we can go to the next stage. We can now add some sample data. I'm talking fast because we don't have a lot of time. So first, let's create some sample data for type. And we don't want to use mock data for this. I just want to create 2 entries. I want to create an entry which is hardware and another one which is software. Just a very easy example, right? So we have some test data for this. And let's also create sample data for CAPEX, for our CAPEX entity. In this case, we don't really care too much about the contents. It's important that we have some content. So I'm saying generate 8 lines for me here, right? And that's immediately happening. To make it a bit more exciting for the analytics use case, I'm choosing different dates here. right, later on, and just changing them a bit, but that's our sample data finished. Going back to the storyboard, last bit in the CAP world is a service on top of our data model. So let's create a new service, or basically two service entities. That's not good. Navigation property. Why should there be a navigation property already? So that's not good. This is what we absolutely like. So don't tweet at the end of the session. Yeah, as long as we fix it. Well, that looks good. And you see a feature here. Actually, this is the CDS that's created. I'm not sure where it has a problem with some annotation. Let's try it again. Yeah, that would be the next thing that I would do, but let's try without a reload first. Come on. Okay. Yeah, maybe something there. Let's have a look again. Yeah, what it did there. Let's go to the graphical modeler. But this should be okay. It's a 2-1, right? That should be okay. All fine. Have a look. And let me do the same thing without talking, because that obviously really derails everything. I mean, just that you know, as it usually goes, there's been a big change to the graphical modeler just this week. But still, of course, yeah, maybe that's also a good idea. Maybe we check for the service CDS, but that also. Yeah, no, that it has no. That's the one that we would like to create, right? Like maybe I do like a reload, like people said, but that looks all fine, right? There's no problem in the CDS, but it said something like CDSL. That's what the graphical modeler uses. CDSL, of course, is the kind of specification for our data. Let's see if we get this in check. Okay. Marianna, then the only thing I can imagine that we do, let's try this. Let's go to the already existing one, and I will delete the UI application. Okay, just that you get what we're doing now. Of course, we are somehow prepared, right, for this kind of thing. So, so you can see just that it would work. Actually, let me first delete this one here. Yeah. You mean
through the command plat?
You want to do it?
Yes.
Maybe you
should I?
Oh yeah.
This one here?
Yes.
Okay, so here we have a command Fury. Then delete application from CAP project. And then it asks me Is it better? Okay. So now the application is deleted.
Should we try first to at least show the groupable entities and so on? Do we want to risk it?
Yeah, of course.
Let's try. Because
okay.
Just one, if you go, this is where the service would be, right? Graphical modeler. I mean, this is an important part of the. So the service is pretty easy.
Yeah, I can talk about it. So here we have a show details button, and here we have a lot of different properties of our entity, including the aggregations. And here you can define which properties of your service are aggregatable and with which methods, and which properties are groupable. So currently what we have set up, the title is none, the start date is groupable, and type is also groupable, but ID and efficiency are aggregatable, so that ID is only with count distinct, and efficiency can support all the aggregation methods. So that's what we have here. So let's move back to the storyboard. In the storyboard, this one, we can create the app by just clicking on this plus button. And here we need to answer a few simple questions. For example, what is the name of my app? So let's call it CapEx Overview. And application name is being generated. I can add a description, not important. Then choose an application type. I choose a template-based responsive application. And in the next step, I would need to select a template. We will create a list report page, which we will later on enable with analytics. Main entity is pre-selected. I could change them. And I also choose here by default to automatically add table columns to the list page so that I can adapt it later on, but I already have something to start with. Now the application is being generated, and you can see here below that different dependencies that we need to work with these applications are being installed. This takes like just a moment. In the meantime, maybe I will close this side panel so that we have more real estate. Now the files have been generated and the page map is being opened. Page map is actually a structure of your app. So you can see it consists of the list report and object page app. And by clicking on this edit button, we can see also the structure of our page. So we are now working with the list report, and I can start the preview of the application using this run and debug button. So while the application is being started, let's have a short look of the structure of our page. So this page consists of filter bar, which is currently empty, and a table which has been generated for us because I selected, you remember this default setting to generate the default table. So here is a small launch pad from which we can dive into our app. So you can see I have a table. I can click go. So it's provided. So here we can see our mock data. And let's go back to the Business Application Studio to configure our next features. So first of all, what I like to do, I'd like to set the initial load here. Oh, not my computer. Down is in a different direction than I need to. So I set it in as enabled, so it's always displayed when I refresh the page. And now let's start with different analytical features. So first of all, I would like to add filter fields. And to make it not that easy, I will start with visual filters from scratch. So filter field, I need to choose. I would like to choose the type, because I want to aggregate the data by type. And which data I'd like to aggregate. I need a measure. I want to create a new measure, and it should be based on the property ID. It has only one aggregation method, you remember, count distinct. So I click add, and my first visual filter is being generated. And along with this visual filter, also a compact filter is generated as a courtesy for you. As a next, I would add another one. And another one, I would like to have a date. For the date, we have the possibility in Fiori elements to represent it either as a bar chart or as a line chart. So I choose line. And I would use the same measure. So use existing, count distinct for ID. And that's it's being added. So what I still can do, I still can update the labels. For example, for ID, I would like to show that this is a request, our CAPEX request. And also for start date, maybe I'd like to have a nicer label. And what else? Also for my next or previous type ID, here request is already taken over because I'm using the same measure in both filters. And here I will just have type. Now, with all this, I can also use this I18N button, which would mean that individual labels are translatable, or I can use the button on here on the top when I'm done with my app to create the missing I18N references. So let's have a look at our preview. You see, the app is loaded, the table is loaded. Here on the top, we have a switch. And when we use this switch, we can see our both visual filters, and I can filter by any of these values. Okay, what we can do, we can also set that I have visual filter as my starting point. So here on the filter bar, I choose the initial layout as visual. Okay, the next thing to do would be to add a chart. So a big analytical chart, I need to choose the type, let it be column. I need to choose a dimension, so let's use a type. And I need to choose the measure. I have an existing one, but I would like to use a different one as a new measure. So I will use the efficiency and let's say maximum efficiency. I click add button and the app has the chart generated. We can see it here. With all its values, I can add a title. I can choose the names of the measures and dimensions as I did before. I wouldn't waste time on that. But let's see the preview. I was too fast, maybe. So when we look at the preview, we can see that we have a chart showing hardware and software requests. And each of them is also can be filtered by our filters, as well as the table below. Here in the application model, in the page editor, you can also set different properties of the chart. You can add additional measures, as for example, I can also see average measure. You can switch the sequence of measures, sequence of dimensions. You can change labels. You can set different other properties, such as presentation variant, which also controls the sequence and sorting and everything. But maybe you have something else to add today.
Maybe just a couple of mentions.
Okay, so what I wanted to also to show you, so it's easily integrated with the code. So as soon as I see this button, which means navigates to the source code, and I click on it, the next to my panel, you can see the specific code snippet from my annotation file with, in this case, chart. If I want like to be even more specific like that, so for example, if I want to see where the title is, I can also click on the properties pane and see the annotation related to that. For visual filters, you know, we also have the same approach. You can click here and you see the annotations that are provided, automatically generated, and at any point you can switch to the expert development mode and continue development in the code editor. You don't have to work always on UI and you don't have to work on this in code. So you can get best of both worlds.
Mention with respect to what Marianna just said, also not only for the Fiori tools that you see here, right? You can get rid of the whole thing here. If you don't like that kind of view and you're more like, I really want to do code now, right? What you can do is close all of this and say, actually, show me the Explorer and you get a normal CUP project here, CUP Fiori Elements project. Everything that's generated, there is no additional metadata or something. It's just pure CUP and just pure Fiori Elements UI5. So you can use this as a starting point, and even with the catastrophe that we had at the beginning, you can see even in 20 minutes, you can get to a full-blown CRUD application with analytics, even without coding, right? Without knowing about annotations or anything there. And then you can switch to the code and finish the rest of the stuff. There's loads of stuff we couldn't show you, not only because of the catastrophe we had, but also because the time is not enough. You can now create calc views directly from CDS in here. So if you want to do multi-dimensional analytics, not to speak about the things that probably take most of the time is the application logic. This helps you creating the application logic. You can create your handlers there. We are working a lot that the JavaScript and the Java in the handler, also probably with generative AI, will become much easier in the future, right? So that you get like, even as a hardcore developer, this starting point, why should you actually do this by hand if you can do it like to that stage in, as you saw, in 20 minutes, right? And that's basically the message. One more thing, it's also, last one is, which we also can't show, is the one-click deployment. Whoever has actually worked with MTAs in this room knows it's a pain. You get something from CUP, you get something from UI5, but then you have to stitch it all together. It's a pain. With this tool, you press a button, it generates like 200 lines of MTA from what you've just seen for you, and it deploys it in one go. It's another boost for you. And that basically.
One question is for a developer who wants to start with it, any like developer tutorial to follow?
Do you mean if there are tutorials there to do? Maybe not exactly this one. We have a video. I know Christoph Golmik at Devtoberfest had a video of basically what we did here.
Yeah.
But there are also tutorials out for example, for risk management, right? The good old risk management.
So we will connect and share the links in the chat.
Yes, and if you have any further questions, we have another session at 11, and Meet the Expert is called, number 2. So with all these questions, you're welcome to come and ask, and we will be there to answer. Thank you very much.
But we still have 2 minutes, so it's open for questions now.
Do I need SAP Build or just the Business Application Studio to use?
No, you just need the Business Application Studio.
Okay, so I
right?
can
It's
start
all
there.
Yes. What I showed at the beginning, this so-called lobby that comes with Build, and that's one way of creating an application. But you can also directly go into BAS and without having Build and create the application there, right?
Before creating the UI, you showed quickly that you can specify the type of aggregations that are possible per attribute. How does this translate? So these are then service annotations?
That's service annotations, yeah. We had a lot that, of course, that important point because of this thing that didn't work, maybe got missed a bit. We had a lot of discussions at the end. There's annotations for the UI and there's annotations for more or less the backend, how to switch the tool. These aggregations that you saw, they become annotations for the service. And basically what Marianna did in the tool, these become annotations for the CDS, which is about the UI. Yeah.
Annotation apply supported is being generated as soon as you set the properties as groupable and aggregatable. And the measures and all the other stuff is then generated when you're working in the app.
Hi, thank you for presentation. Short question, maybe I missed it at the beginning, but based on my understanding, it's currently something like an extension for BAS. Are there any plans of making it public for something like VS Code or whatever?
Most of what you've seen is actually available in VS Code, not the glue together, right? What you saw, the graphical modeler to create CDS, to create the CDS schema and the services, that is a VS Code extension, and everything that Marianna showed is also a VS Code extension. But kind of the storyboard, the glue together, and what I said, all this convenience to be able to launch it together, to create an MTA and so on, that's not available. So bits and pieces are available in VS Code, but not the overall story.
Do I hear yet in that sentence or at all?
Sorry? Oh yes, that's also true. That's a good point, Upa. Yeah, it's probably still not what you're asking, but you can meanwhile also use VS Code as a front end for BAS. I'm not sure if you know that. You can use VS Code, right, the client, and see the same thing, and it does it all in BAS in the backend. I'm not sure if that's known to you. That's out for now a couple of months, but you have to also think the BAS story is, of course, making it like what we say a turnkey solution, right? You get in there, you have everything. You don't have to install this extension, that extension, and so on and so on. That's already there in BAS. You basically, if you do the lobby thing, you don't even have to know what dev space to create. If you know about dev spaces, you just can create a project and it generates a dev space in the back for you, right?